Hey everyone! We are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content and it is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button right now as we proceed. Subscribe to this channel right now because while the entire baseball world has been focused on the Max Scherzer signing and the Trey Savage workload revelations and the Dylan Cease velocity readings that had fans losing their minds, the Toronto Blue Jays quietly slipped a signing through the transaction wire that almost nobody noticed and that deserves significantly more attention than it has received. The Blue Jays have signed outfielder Matthew Valley to a minor league deal. You have probably never heard of him. Most people covering this team have not heard of him either. But here is the number that stops the conversation cold and demands that you pay attention regardless of what league it was produced in or what level of competition it was generated against. 83 stolen bases. In 88 games. A stolen base essentially every single time this man took the field and decided he felt like running. And the Blue Jays, a team that has been notably absent from the stolen base conversation for several seasons now, just added him to their organizational depth at essentially zero financial risk with the specific skill set that changes how opposing pitchers and catchers have to think about every single inning he is involved in. There is also new information on Scherzer that makes the already extraordinary signing look even better than it did at midnight when Jon Heyman first broke the news. And there is an Eric Lowour development from yesterday's spring training game that is going to add considerable fuel to the trade conversation that has been building around him for weeks. Let us get into all of it. Matthew Valley first, because this is the story that is genuinely flying under the radar and that deserves its proper introduction before the baseball world figures out what the Blue Jays just quietly added to their organizational depth. He spent the last 2 years playing for a franchise in the Frontier League, a professional independent baseball circuit that operates primarily in Quebec and the surrounding region, and the numbers he produced across that stretch are the kind that make you read them twice just to confirm you processed them correctly the first time. In his age 24 season last year, he posted an 841 OPS, hit for a .352 batting average, generated a .428 on-base percentage, collected 127 hits, and drove in 41 runs. Those are genuinely good offensive numbers at any level of professional baseball. They are the kind of numbers that suggest a disciplined, contact-oriented offensive approach built on the ability to get on base consistently rather than on power production that can be neutralized with a different pitch mix or a slightly different defensive alignment. But the number that makes everything else secondary, the number that makes this signing make sense the moment you see it, is the stolen base total. 83 stolen bases in 88 games. A stolen base almost literally every game across an entire professional season. That is not a player who runs occasionally and picks his spots. That is a player for whom the stolen base is so fundamental to his offensive identity that opposing teams have to factor him into their defensive calculations from the moment he reaches base, which by his on-base percentage he does with extraordinary frequency. The comparison that surfaces most naturally when looking at Valley's profile is Billy Hamilton, the former Cincinnati Reds outfielder whose elite speed made him a legitimate defensive weapon and pinch-running asset despite offensive limitations that prevented him from developing into an everyday starter at the major league level. Valley appears to share the specific combination of excellent contact ability, elite on-base percentage, minimal power production, and extraordinary speed that defines the archetype Hamilton represented, potentially with slightly better offensive tools given his recent statistical production. The appropriate caveat here is significant and needs to be stated clearly. The Frontier League is not the major leagues, the catchers he was stealing against are not Jorge Alfaro, and 83 stolen bases against independent league pitchers and catchers does not automatically translate into 83 stolen bases in a major league environment where the pitching is better, the catchers are more skilled, and the pickoff moves are more sophisticated. That translation gap is real and substantial, and the Blue Jays almost certainly understand it completely, which is why this is a minor league deal rather than a roster commitment. But the skill set is genuine. The athleticism required to steal 83 bases in 88 professional games regardless of the competition level is not something that evaporates when the quality of play improves. The speed is real. The instincts that produce stolen bases are real. and a team that currently lacks an elite base-running threat and has been looking at their bench construction with an eye toward adding specific types of value that the roster does not currently possess in abundance, has found a player who provides exactly that value at essentially zero cost or risk. The role that makes the most sense for Valley in the Blue Jays organizational picture is the one that the signing's minor league nature suggests was always the primary intention: AAA depth in Buffalo initially, with the possibility of a September call-up when roster expansion provides the additional spots that allow teams to carry specialists whose value is concentrated in a specific situational context rather than spread across the full range of offensive and defensive contributions that an everyday roster spot requires. The historical precedent that surfaces here is genuinely evocative for anyone who has followed the Blue Jays across their most successful playoff runs. Dalton Pompey, the speedster whose stolen base ability and defensive range made him a legitimate postseason weapon in 2015 and 2016, producing memorable moments in high-stakes games that no one involved in those runs has forgotten. The Blue Jays do not currently have that player on their roster. Valley is not Pompey, and the Frontier League is not the minor leagues, and a minor league signing is not a postseason roster decision. But the organizational vision of having a player with elite speed available as the season deepens and the roster spots become available is a coherent and intelligent piece of bench construction that the transaction wire signed without anyone noticing. Now let us turn to the Scherzer updates, because the information emerging from DIDN in the days since the midnight signing announcement is making a deal that already looked extraordinary look progressively better with every new piece of reporting. John Schneider has confirmed that Scherzer has already begun his spring training throwing progression. He has thrown bullpens and faced live hitters, and the plan for his game-to-game progression will be finalized once he arrives in camp this weekend. The timeline that Ben Nicholson-Smith initially reported, targeting late April or May as the realistic readiness window for Scherzer to appear in competitive games, remains the organizational expectation, and the Blue Jays are being appropriately patient with his ramp-up rather than rushing him into a competitive debut before his arm is fully prepared. But the fact that he was already throwing bullpens and facing live hitters before officially arriving in camp speaks to a competitive readiness and a professional preparation standard that is entirely consistent with the Scherzer reputation that preceded this signing. The reporting from Mitch Bannon that has emerged since the signing provides the most vivid and most telling detail about what Scherzer's presence actually looks like inside a professional baseball organization. He was in John Schneider's office literally every single day during his previous stint with the Blue Jays. Every day. Not occasionally, not when he had a specific question or concern, every single day. Processing the game, discussing pitching strategy, talking through how to approach specific hitters, contributing the accumulated knowledge of a career spanning more than 2 decades to the organizational conversations that shape how a pitching staff prepares and executes. That kind of daily intellectual engagement with the craft of pitching is not something that shows up in ERA statistics or innings pitched totals. It is the ambient competitive intelligence that elevates a pitching environment from a collection of talented individuals to a genuine collective that learns and improves together. Cody Ponce is new to this organization and new to pitching with the velocity his arm is now producing. Scherzer in the same building every day is an incomparable resource for a pitcher trying to figure out how to weaponize stuff he did not have 18 months ago. Dylan Cease is a genuine ace talent who is also still developing the specific game management skills that separate good pitchers from great ones across a full 162-game season. Scherzer in Schneider's office every morning is the kind of daily access to elite-level pitching wisdom that money genuinely cannot manufacture through any other mechanism. And Trey Savage, being carefully managed through a first full major league season with an innings limit that is going to create challenges and pressures that his rookie experience cannot fully prepare him for. Scherzer present in every clubhouse environment, every pregame meeting, every moment where a young pitcher needs to see what sustained excellence under maximum pressure actually looks like from someone who has done it for 2 decades, is the organizational investment that $3 million in base salary makes possible. Eric Lowour's spring training performance yesterday adds a complicating note to the optimistic organizational picture that everything else in this update is painting. He gave up 3 earned runs in 1 2/3 innings against a lineup that, while not the most formidable collection of major league talent assembled on a spring training field, still featured enough professional quality to make the results meaningful in the way that early spring outings always provide genuine information even when the appropriate caveats about sample size and competitive context are applied. 3 earned runs in less than 2 innings from a pitcher who is publicly aware that his roster spot is under pressure, whose arbitration case just concluded with a loss, and whose path to consistent starts has been progressively narrowed by every organizational pitching acquisition since the offseason began, is the kind of performance that does not help his cause in the way he needed it to help. Lowour has too much professional quality and too much recent track record of genuine effectiveness to be written off based on a single spring training outing. His 3.18 ERA last season and his elite reliever numbers remain on the resume regardless of what happened in 1 2/3 innings on a spring afternoon. But the pressure is real, the trade conversations are real, and yesterday's performance is the kind of thing that adds momentum to the exit narrative rather than the stay and contribute narrative. The belief here remains that Lowour eventually gets moved, probably not before opening day but at some point during the season when the right deal presents itself and the organizational clarity about the direction of the rotation makes the trade the logical resolution for both parties. Drop your hottest takes in the comments right now. Had you heard of Matthew Valley before this video, and does 83 stolen bases in 88 games get you genuinely excited about what he could represent for this organization? Does the Scherzer daily office visits detail change how you think about his value to this team beyond what he contributes on the mound? And does Lowour's spring performance make you believe the trade happens sooner rather than later? Get everything into the comments immediately. Smash that like button to push this coverage to every Blue Jays fan who missed the sneaky signing that nobody is talking about. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss a single development as this roster continues to take its final shape. And share this video because this community finds the stories that the mainstream coverage misses every single day. Let us go Blue Jays!